What happens when one of music's brightest stars walks into a talk show expecting an easy chat, but ends up facing tough accusations that question his entire career? Bruno Mars thought he was just doing a normal appearance on The View to promote his latest album. But what began as cheerful small talk soon turned into one of the most tense on-air moments daytime TV has seen. Before diving in, make sure to subscribe and share whose side you're on, because this one will definitely split opinions. Bruno walks out to applause, flashing his famous smile and waving to the crowd. The hosts greet him warmly, and at first, everything feels lighthearted. Whoopi starts by congratulating him on the new record and asking about his inspiration. Bruno talks about spending months in the studio with different producers, wanting this project to feel more personal. The audience loves it. He's relaxed, cracking small smiles and clearly in his comfort zone. But then Joy Behar leans forward, and the mood in the room shifts. She says she has a question many people have been curious about. Bruno nods politely, not realizing what's about to hit him. Joy says, "Bruno, your music is hugely successful, but some critics accuse you of cultural appropriation. You're famous for doing funk, soul, R&B, all genres created by black artists. How do you respond to people who say you're profiting off black culture?" Bruno's face changes. His smile stiffens and silence fills the air. The other hosts shift uncomfortably. Sonny Hostin looks down. Sarah Haynes glances between Joy and Bruno, and even Whoopi seems caught off guard by the bluntness. Bruno finally says, "Well, Joy, thanks for asking me directly instead of talking about it online like many people do. I've spoken about this before, but I'll say it again. I grew up in Hawaii in a Filipino and Puerto Rican family. Music was everything. My dad had a band. I started performing at 4 years old. I didn't love these genres for money. I loved them because they moved me." Joy interrupts. "But don't you see how that's problematic? Black artists created these genres out of hardship. Then non-black artists come in and get more radio play, more recognition. You have to acknowledge that dynamic." Bruno straightens up, his tone firm but respectful. "I do acknowledge it. I've always credited my influences. James Brown, Prince, Michael Jackson. They're my heroes. But what am I supposed to do? Stop making music? I respect the culture. I honor it. I'm not stealing, I'm celebrating." Joy shakes her head. "It's not about intent, it's about impact. You're thriving in a space where black artists often struggle for the same success. Don't you feel responsible for that?" Bruno's jaw tightens. "Responsible for what exactly? Should I give back my Grammys? Stop making music? I worked hard to get here. Nothing was handed to me. I was rejected by labels, wrote songs for others, paid my dues. I made it and I'm thankful, but I didn't take anything from anyone. There's room for all of us." Alyssa Farah Griffin tries to ease the tension. "I think Bruno's saying music is universal." But Joy cuts her off. "No, I want Bruno to answer this. Do you think you'd be as successful if you were a dark-skinned black man singing the same songs?" The room falls silent. Bruno pauses before saying, "I don't know, Joy. Maybe not. But I don't know if I'd be as successful if I looked different or was born in another time. There are many factors in success. Privilege is one of them. But I didn't choose who I am. I just make music I love." Joy crosses her arms. "You benefit from a system that favors non-black artists. You should acknowledge that more often instead of getting defensive." Bruno laughs bitterly. "Defensive? You just accused me of stealing my career. What else am I supposed to do? I've acknowledged privilege, but what more do you want? An apology for my success?" Whoopi tries to calm things down, but Joy keeps going. "Your success takes space from black artists. When you win awards, that's one less for them." Bruno's voice rises. "You invited me here to talk about music, not to put me on trial for existing. If you have these issues, why bring me on at all?" Joy fires back. "Because you're a public figure. These are important conversations." Bruno says, "I've never ignored the issue, but there's a difference between discussion and attack, and this feels like an attack." Sarah finally speaks. "This is a sensitive subject with valid views on both sides." Joy interrupts again. "We can't both sides this. Bruno profits from genres black artists created. That's fact." Bruno leans forward. "Joy, I've worked with black musicians all my life. Some are in my band. I've never erased anyone. So what do you want? Should I quit making music that isn't tied to my ethnicity? Because that sounds problematic too." The crowd gasps. Joy says sharply, "Don't twist this. I'm asking for accountability." Bruno replies, accountability for what? For being born who I am? That's not fair. Sonny jumps in. I think Joy means there's a bigger industry issue. Bruno cuts in. It sure doesn't feel that way when I'm the one being accused. Joy slaps her hand on the table lightly. Appropriation isn't theft, but it's still wrong. You profit from a culture not your own. Bruno stands up, visibly frustrated. I'm honoring that culture. Without black music, there's no Bruno Mars. Joy stands too, saying it isn't enough. What are you actually doing for black artists? Bruno's voice cracks. You don't know what I do behind the scenes. You're making assumptions about my character. Whoopi tries to intervene, but Joy won't back down. We must hold people accountable, she insists. Bruno says, I make music, Joy, that's not a crime. You keep saying accountability like I did something wrong. Joy replies, it's about awareness. Bruno says, I'm defensive because I was ambushed. I came here for a positive conversation and this is what I got. The audience is split now. Some clap for Bruno, others for Joy. Joy says, if you feel ambushed, maybe that says something. Bruno replies, you've been interrogating me for 15 minutes. This isn't discussion, it's judgment. Alyssa tries to redirect. Let's talk about the album. And Bruno takes a deep breath, sitting back down. That's what I wanted to do from the start. But Joy cuts in. You can't ignore uncomfortable truths, Bruno. Bruno sighs. I'm not ignoring anything. But you should have told me this was going to be a debate. Instead, you blindsided me. Joy scoffs. This has been talked about for years. You knew it might come up. Bruno says, there's a difference between a question and an interrogation. You're not listening. You've made up your mind. Sonny adds, Joy's asking hard questions. That's journalism. Bruno shakes his head. No, that's a gotcha moment for ratings. The audience reacts loudly. Joy's face flushes. We don't need drama for ratings, she says. Bruno responds, real conversations require good faith. You've shown me none. Whoopi raises her voice, calling for a break. After commercials, everyone looks calmer. Whoopi says, we got heated earlier. Bruno, say what you want uninterrupted. Bruno nods. I understand why this issue exists. I know the history. But loving and creating in a genre isn't appropriation, it's appreciation. Music crosses boundaries. I grew up surrounded by different sounds. I don't think about race when I write. I think about truth. I've worked for this, sacrificed for this. So when people say my success isn't earned, it hurts. Joy replies, hard work isn't the only factor. Some artists have advantages. It's important to use your platform to uplift others. Bruno says, I do try, but I can't fix an entire system. I can only be respectful and honest. Joy says, but can you see why black artists might feel frustrated seeing you win R&B awards? Bruno nods. Yes, the system isn't fair. I know that, but stopping my art won't fix it. Sarah smiles. That's a fair point. This is the kind of open talk we need. Joy says, words are fine, but we need action. Bruno sighs. What action, Joy? She lists suggestions. Speak up, share opportunities, donate. Bruno says, and if I told you I already do that, would you believe me? Joy says, I'd need to see proof. Bruno says, that's the problem. You've already decided nothing I say matters. Joy says, you're not a villain, Bruno. Just someone who benefits from privilege. Bruno raises his voice. I already said that. What more do you want? Joy says, stop acting like a victim. Bruno stands. I never said I was. But this interview has been nothing but attacks. Whoopi says, Bruno, please calm down. Bruno replies, with respect, I've been calm. But I won't sit here and let my career be called theft. Sonny says, no one said that. Bruno answers, it sure feels like it. Joy says, maybe that's because there's truth in it. Bruno stares. You don't know me, Joy. You've judged me based on assumptions. Joy says, your reactions are defensive and disappointing. Bruno unclips his mic. Then I think we're done. Joy says, you're just walking away. Bruno replies, I came to talk music, not be lectured. I'm leaving. Whoopi urges him to stay, but he shakes his head. No thanks. I've had enough. Alyssa tries to calm things down. But Bruno says, "The damage is done." Joy says, "The only damage is your refusal to face the truth." Bruno says, "I've been honest, Joy. I'm not apologizing for existing." Joy says, "No one asked you to." Bruno says, "Then what do you want?" "Nothing I say will ever satisfy you." Sarah adds, "This shows how hard these conversations are." Bruno nods. "They are, but they're harder when one side refuses to listen." Joy says, "My goal is equity. If that makes you uncomfortable, reflect on that." Bruno exhales. "I hope you're proud of this. You didn't change minds, you just added more division." He looks around the studio. "Congratulations." The crowd erupts. Some cheer, others stare in silence. Whoopi tries to end the chaos, but Bruno's already walking off stage. Joy calls after him. "Walking away doesn't solve anything." Bruno stops, turns back and says, "Neither does ambushing people on live TV. Maybe next time, try having a real conversation." The hosts sit speechless. Whoopi faces the camera and says, "Well, that didn't go as expected. We'll be right back." The room buzzes with tension. Joy looks smug, the others look uneasy, and the audience whispers in disbelief. This moment is sure to be talked about for weeks. What do you think? Did Joy go too far, or was Bruno overreacting? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe for all the follow-up from this explosive interview.